What's up everybody, Mr. Mira here, and today we are back with another Java video. Now that we have seen static methods and instance methods in action, we should probably discuss how do we make these types of methods ourselves so that we can add even more power to our coding ability. And let's start by opening up our class name, and I think we're doing October Sky today. We are. What a great Jake Gyllenhaal and Laura Dern movie. I'm pretty sure it's Jake Gyllenhaal. Hopefully it's not Tobey Maguire. I sometimes get them confused. I should have looked before I started recording. Oh well, we need to talk about methods. Now there's a couple rules when making methods. The first rule is that methods need to be located within the boundaries of our class curly braces. So let's take our main method here and let's cut it. And if I try to put it below class, I get an error. And I get some errors here. So if I highlight them, it says class or interface expected. Here, it says curly brace expected. So I can't put it below. If I cut and I try to put it above, get some different errors, but still get some errors. Class or interface expected, illegal type void. So methods that we make must be between the closing curly braces, open and closing curly braces of our class. That's the first rule. The second rule is that methods cannot be created within the curly braces of another method. As far as our knowledge is concerned at this point, methods cannot be created within the curly braces of another method. So let's make a method, and then we'll try to make another one inside of that to kind of show off that second rule. So let's start our method here, and we're going to actually go back and we're going to make methods based on Warcraft. We're going back to Warcraft references here, mainly because I want to make sure we spell Frostmourne Hungers correctly this time. And the first method that we're going to make, let's make a public static, and let's call this Boolean. So these first three things that I've just typed, really only the public and the Boolean we're going to discuss. Static we've kind of already talked, so I'll briefly glance over it. The first thing, public. This is known as an access modifier. This is who has access to this method. If the method is public, that means that other classes, other projects, other files will have access to this method, will be able to call this method, will be able to get results from this method because it is public. So we can think of it as if we are out in a park, other people that we don't know have access to come up and talk to us, have access to come up and ask us questions. Because we're out in public, we can interact with other people and other people can interact with us. The other access modifier that we can sometimes see is private. Private we can think of as if we were in our own home. And our home in this case is class October Sky. If we were in our own home, only the other people inside the household would be able to interact with us. Only the other individuals inside the household would be able to interact with us. Random people from outside, whether we know them or not, if they're friends or if they are random people, they are not able to interact with us. So if we have an access modifier of private, only that class, only other things inside that class can interact or call this method, get data from this method, get results from this method. So we're going to do public. Now the next part, so we talked about public, Boolean. Boolean is a return type. So after the access modifier, we give a return type on our method. So access modifier first, return type second. So Boolean is a return type. Boolean means that I will return true or false from this method. It's like a contract I'm writing. It says, okay, at the end of this method, when it's all said and done, you will have to return true or false. So that's our return type. Return type could be anything. It could be string. It could be int, right? It could be double. It could be float. If I don't return anything, if I don't have a return type, if I'm not returning anything, I'm void, right? And we see void up here with the main method. So void means that you are not returning something. So let's go back to Boolean. The next thing that I need to type on a method line is I need to give the method a name. So let's do not create method. Let's do create grunt. So create grunt is my method name. So whenever I need to call this method, whoever needs to call this method will need to use the create grunt name. The last thing that we have is this is where we put our parameters. So we always need parentheses. If we don't put anything in the parentheses, that's fine. We don't have to. But if I want values, if I want certain values that I can use inside my method, I need to have something in the parentheses. So I'm going to do int, let's say like gold. Yeah, we'll just say gold. And then I'm going to say comma Boolean has barracks. So those are the two things that I require in order to work correctly inside this method. And we have an error right now, and that's expected because our error is saying Java is telling us that the IDE that we're using is telling us that we need to return something. I said I was going to return something here, yet inside my method, I haven't returned anything. So I need to have a return type somewhere. Okay, so let's write out this method. So in order to make a grunt, I'm going to need two things. I'm going to need int So not int, I'm going to need if my gold is greater than or equal to, let's do 200. And has, actually no, I don't like this. Let's do has barracks is more important. Has barracks and, okay. That's better. So if we have a barracks and our gold amount is greater than or equal to 200. Now there was a reason that I flipped that order there, because Java will evaluate, and because it's an and, it's known as short circuit evaluation. If has barracks is false because it's an and, it's not even going to check my gold number. So has barracks is more important. I need to have a barracks before I can do a grunt. So if has barracks is false, it's just going to leave this if statement because the entire thing is false. Remember, logical and, everything needs to be true in order for the entire statement to be true. So short circuit evaluation says if this is false, you're done, right? You're done. If this was an or statement, if this was true, I just immediately go inside. Again, I wouldn't check gold. So because this is and, if has barracks is true, then I have to go verify that this side is also true because I'm an and both sides need to be true. So if I have a barracks, I'm just going to return true. Otherwise, I'm going to return false. So when we have a return type, we need to use the keyword return somewhere in the method. Somewhere in the method, you need to return whatever data type you have up here. So you need to match your data type. So return true, return false. And I'm going to tag this. So end of main. No, not end of main. What am I saying? End of create grunt. Now I said I wanted to show off, I wanted to make a method here to show off our second rule of methods cannot be made inside of other methods. So what do we want to do? I'm only going to do one more method here. I don't want this video to run on long enough, but I can make a bunch of methods here related to Warcraft. So maybe we'll come back when we deal with classes and we'll actually do that in a class. We'll make a bunch of methods. Maybe that's the idea. Okay, let's do public. Let's do a void one. Public static void ominous message. I like that. And it's not going to take anything, and then we do that. But you'll notice here that having a method inside here, I get an error. It doesn't work correctly. It expects a semicolon somewhere. So that's our second rule. Methods cannot be made inside the curly braces of other methods. I have to have it outside on its own. So this is end of ominous message. And that's a reason that I like to tag these, because I don't want to accidentally put a method inside another method. So if I have the ending curly brace tagged, I know I have to type away from that. All right, let's make our ominous message. System.out.println Frostmourne with the E hungers ... So those are our two methods, right? So we give an access modifier, a return type, a name, and then any parameters. We don't have to include parameters if I don't need any parameters, but we can include them. So let's talk about how do we call these methods. Well, first thing, if the method is void, the return type is void, you don't do anything special. You don't put it in a print statement or anything like that. You simply just name the method, ominous message, parentheses, and that's it. That's all you need to do. So if it's void, return type void, you just simply call the method. If it has a return type, there's a couple options. If it has a return type, we could call the method inside of a print statement, or we could call the method and set its answer to a variable. So let's do the name here and the name here do not need to be the same thing. So even if this is gold, it is not the same as this gold. It is not the same variable. The name is the same, but the variables are different. They are at different memory locations. They are different things. The colors are different. You can tell that as well. If the names are the same, it doesn't matter. They are still different variables. They are different memory locations, even if they have the same name. So same name, they're different. Different names and different names. They're different. It doesn't matter. The variable naming doesn't matter. So we have to worry about the scope and the life cycle, the lifetime of variables. But the scope here, as long as I'm in different methods, I can use the same name in different methods over and over again. So in the main method, I can have a variable called hasBarracks, and in a different method, create grunt, I can have a different variable that has the same name, hasBarracks. So to call this, we're going to say Boolean. We're going to do the store first. We're going to say Boolean grunt made. So we said Boolean grunt made, and then we do our method call. So we say create grunt, and now we have to pass in the arguments. So the arguments we're expecting are an integer and a Boolean. It doesn't care about the name. Again, the name doesn't matter. It cares about the data types. So the first argument that I pass in needs to be an int data type. Whatever variable I have or whatever number I put here needs to be an int. So I happen to have a int variable, so I can say gold amount. The second, and then I do a comma, and then the second value that I put in here must be a Boolean. That's what it expects. It expects an int and then a Boolean. So I happen to have a Boolean, which I can just say has barracks. And I can do this, and then I can do a print statement. I can say system.out.println. I could do an if statement that like tests if the grunt was made or not, but we'll just do a print statement, grunt made. And I expect to get a result of true. I have enough gold and I have a barracks, so if I were to run this, I do get a result true. We see our Frostmourne hungers from our ominous message that we typed up there, and then we see our result true. So that's just a simple overview of methods, what we're looking at with methods, access modifier, return type, method name, parameters. If you don't have anything to return, you're void. Otherwise, you will need to say the word return and match the thing that you are returning to your return type. When you call a method, if it is void, you just call it as normal. If it has a return type, you can either store the answer into a variable that matches the return type, or you can call it inside a print statement and print out a result automatically. But until then, everybody have a week.